Welcome back. It's your boy Scholar G.
I'm back.
Now, who would have known that a lot of your favorite so-called healthy foods were possibly harming your body rather than actually helping it? A lot of us never really took the time to actually research what we put in our bodies ourselves. We rely on sources like news articles, doctors, and sometimes science that are misleading on nutrition and go on with our daily lives. Now, a lot of vegetables have starch in them, and of course, we all know all grains and certain vegetables naturally have starch, which is not a big deal, right? Well, yeah, sure, that is true. However, what if I said starches are not the same and that there are differentiations of starches? Starches that are easier to digest than others, and starches that harm your body, and there is no symptoms for you to even know it. Another fact is that just because you don't have or not feeling symptoms doesn't mean your body isn't having inflammation. For example, we know eating fast food is extremely unhealthy, but how many people do you know rushing to the hospital after eating a nice looking double cheeseburger with fries or a nice big pork or rib sandwich? Not many, right? Well, this is also something that happens when eating certain starches. But wait, before I go into this, remember there is a difference between natural starch and resistant starch. Yes, it's deep and it's complicated, but once I break these down, you will understand why and how foods you thought that were beneficial are not entirely. Natural starches are way much more easier for the body to digest. They break down much easier in the body without your body using tons of energy to digest. Now, resistant starches are starches that are the opposite. They do not break down easy, and random articles will try to tell you otherwise. Unlike my parasite videos, most of my content speaking on food or what we've been told is food gets a lot of backlash and negative feedback due to the fact that people have a very emotional attachment to food. As much as I don't want to say that, it is true. Even myself have had attachments to food. I knew for a scientific fact that was completely bad for me to consume, but I did not care. No one could have told me what I shouldn't or should not have eaten. But enough of me. I'm here to inform people about types of foods that are actually not the best form of nutrition for a real healthy diet. And to my meat eaters out there, I apologize, but if you know about my parasite videos, you will know meat is completely out the question. Now, I'm not trying to tell anyone not to eat meat. This is just my personal choice, only because of the factual research and studies I have seen. Now, in my parasite videos, all parasites derive from animals, so of course eating the meat, even if it's cooked, are high likely to cause future health issues. And don't forget about carcinogens, which is in a lot of processed foods. And the number one on that list is processed meats. By the way, check out a documentary called What the Health. This documentary is very informal and very inspirational from a young man who explains his journey being a vegan. Now let's get back to the 5 types of starches that we were talking about. The first one, resistant starch type 1. In the short term, RS1. Now, RS1 means physically inaccessible starches. Once again, RS1 means physically inaccessible starches. Physically inaccessible. Now let's be logical about this. Let's take the word physically. Physically means in a matter relating to the body as opposed to the mind. Another definition means in a way that involves bodily contact or activity. Now let's look up the word inaccessible. Inaccessible means unable to be reached or entered. So why is it that the first type of resistant starch that are physically inaccessible labeled as beneficial to so many articles and nutritionists? Now, let's give an example of what RS1 is, or physically inaccessible starches is. For one example, whole kernel grains. According to the NIH, whole kernel grains are surrounded by protein matrix and cell wall material. These physical structures hinder the digestibility of starch and reduce the glycemic response. When these grains are cooked, it prevents water penetration into the starch. Therefore, the starch does not have the adequate moisture to readily gelatinize and swell. Without proper swelling, it is not susceptible to enzymatic hydrolysis. Now, what is enzymatic hydrolysis? Enzymatic hydrolysis play an important role in the digestion of foods. Once again, enzymatic hydrolysis plays an important role in the digestion of food. Now, RS type 1 is more focused on kernel grains, white bread, and pasta. Now, once we get to RS type 2, I'm going to break down a list of foods. Matter of fact, I could break down some foods right now. Let me give you an example. Beans, brown rice, bananas, lentils, oats, potatoes, and even veggies like broccoli and cabbage are also resistant starch based. You're probably thinking, wait a minute, then what is there to eat? I'm glad you asked. And I will be gladly to answer those questions once we get past the first part of this video. Now, a lot of health professionals and nutritionists will try their best to get people to actually study and research the food before they actually eat it. For example, a lot of holistic influencers and herbalists like Dr. Sebi even mentioned about the dangers of starches.
The usage of comfrey. Comfrey contains starch. Starch is carbonic acid, but you find that many people who call themselves dietitian or herbalists, from a natural perspective, they use comfrey. They also use, like I said, foxglove, which is a very poisonous plant because it is a hybrid plant.
However, only so many people took Dr. Sebi information serious, while most people undermined his knowledge and told him he was a fraud, scammer, and never went to school and had no clue what he was talking about, despite the success he had done for people who had diabetes, HIV, lupus, sickle cell, and many other illnesses that people would heal from using his information and taking his advice. But you have to remember, Dr. Sebi did not go to school or college, so having the name doctor instantly offended many people. Also, because he didn't go to school, Dr. Sebi explained things in general terms. When he mentioned about starch, it wasn't that he was wrong. It was that he did not go into specifics on what starches he was explaining, which is completely understandable if he's not a person who went to grad school or a university. And when you are dealing with bookworms and people who believe that school is the only place that has the answers, you're going to get a lot of backlash. But long story short, Dr. Sebi was only explaining that hybrid foods have resistant starches, and resistant starches, unlike natural starches, does things completely different to the body during enzymatic hydrolysis. These situations, when explaining things, are the main reasons why so many people never find a common ground with issues, because we instantly judge others just by communication and terminology alone.
And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know,